The Masungi Georeserve Foundation says they were kept in the dark about the DENR's decision to cancel a 2002 agreement with Blue Star Corporation, the firm that developed the site. Speaking to our sister program, News and Views, Dumaliang, managing trustee of Masungi, said they only got wind of the decision during the DENR's press conference. To date, Dumaliang said they are yet to receive the notice, but are prepared to take the DENR to court. In its decision, the DENR canceled the deal with Blue Star, citing illegalities and failure to deliver the 5,000-unit garden cottages housing project. Masungi laments the DENR's action, saying this is detrimental to the preservation of the rock formations in the Georeserve. The cancellation of the deal would mean the government takeover of the Masungi, which is now a popular ecotourism destination in Rizal.
To discuss this further, we have with us Dumaliang, managing trustee of Masungi Georeserve. Good evening to you and welcome to the big story. First of all, yes, and I'd like to ask about the houses that were not delivered, because this is the first time it's been revealed to the public that Blue Star is actually engaged in development and of housing.
We have actually had attempts to be transparent around the idea of it coming from a conservation development model. So the presence of Blue Star from a joint venture is coming from a joint venture agreement. And the model, the pioneering model that it represents, is called a conservation development, which is a known conservation financing mechanism. And as you know, there are, for these bigger types of developments, also different kinds of zones. For a conservation development, those special zones would then be forest and restoration spaces. And this allegation that nothing was delivered, that seems to be what everyone, or at least what's being put out, no? Or what's being...
What the DENR says.
Yeah, but there is something delivered, no? So land development and the services were there, the utilities are there, the roads are there, and all of this is fully financed by Blue Star as committed in the agreement. Later on, there are options for lots, and this is why it's not as, it's not as overridden by houses as people expected it to be.
What is the relationship between Masungi Georeserve Foundation and Blue Star?
Right. So Blue Star is the engineering firm that my dad ran in the area. This is the organization that has a joint venture agreement with the DENR back in the 1990s. Masungi Georeserve Foundation came out in 2015, 2016. And the reason why I put it up is to have conservation, more conservation financing for the restoration of the place and beyond. So the initiative's intent is really to be able to save up some funds that goes directly into conservation and the advocacy as opposed to distributed as dividends.
I ask because it may be somewhat of a contradiction that you are a, you advocate the preservation of the environment when all along the agreement was to build houses in this reserve. It may be also a contradiction of the DENR actually, but I'm throwing the question to you.
Right. So the conservation development model, if I may expound on it, is actually largely skewed towards conservation. The intent was to have 70% of the land area or more restored, and the remaining area as the housing component of the project, which also intends to be able to support the conservation of the rest of the site. So that has always been the best case scenario for developing the location, and that is precisely what we see has been done. If you look at the very popular photo of what the area looked like in the 1990s and what it looks like in 2016, that was Blue Star's work. No? And we have to come back to the fact that the agreement, again, not a straight contract, the agreement, this collaborative project with the DENR is two-pronged. It is housing, but it does also say that we need to ensure maximum preservation and environment conservation of the area.
And if I may ask, we all know where the geopark is, and we've all seen it, if not personally, everywhere on social media. But where are the houses exactly? We understand this is just a 2002 agreement. There's supposed to be 5,000 houses coming out of that 300 hectare. Nasaan yung bahay? Yung mga bahay?
Not on the 300 hectares. No? So if you are to backtrack a little bit, there is a main joint venture agreement before the supplemental agreement called the JVA. We can put it at that. And there are houses that are built in this area. However, that has not,
How many?
hindi pa na-cover yung 5,000 that is supposed to be delivered there, no?
Oo nga po,
And
ilan?
also
Ilan
why
po?
it hasn't jumped to developing the 300 hectares. One thing to note here is when we look at the housing development in the joint venture agreement, how do I put this? This has also been, I kind of lost my thought there already. Would you like to build on it?
Yeah, so there are two agreements, right? The 1997, according to the DENR, who we had here last week on Friday, wala daw issue yung 1997. It's only the supplemental 2002 JVA that they have a problem with, because that was for another 5,000 houses. And from what we also know and what we can see anecdotally, it became a geopark, which is now Masungi Geopark, that we all know and love and we visit, right? We're wondering what happened. Where did the original agreement for that supplemental JVA was supposed to produce 5,000 houses? Instead, we got a geopark. We're just wondering what happened in the interim and how did it end up like that?
Correct, right. So this is where I have to raise that in as much as the DENR claims to have delivered their responsibility, they haven't delivered the site free of encumbrances just yet. This is why the project keeps on actually getting pushed back. If you were there in the early 2000s, in the late 2000s rather, you go by the roadside and all of this would be littered with all of these groups that are claiming land. No? So in this area, land syndicates are very prolific and are very, there's an endemic of them there. In fact, no less than the SJVA says that. And this has really hurt the project. This has really hurt their private sector partner. If I may give an anecdote or an example, at this time, we are even paying 100,000 pesos a month since 2016 as rent to one of these groups who are illegally claiming land. And why does this continue to happen? Because even if we approach DENR and ask them to file a case, they refuse to. No, they refuse to do that. And we're now shouldering the burden
Who in
of having to
particular,
protect this land.
who in particular in the DNR refuses to go after these illegal claimants?
We
Who in
have had
particular?
multiple meetings with the regional director, with the undersecretary levels. And ito, no? So, wala. They refuse to do that. We do the case build up. They even refuse to authorize us to file these kinds of cases. My point is, we have tried very hard to stay true to the agreement, to put together all of these laws that people may seem as a contradiction, to the benefit of the environment, and to stay true to what we are as private sector partners of government.
But it also begs the question, Anne, why didn't you just back out of the JVA? It's not like you were contracted to fix this. This is a joint venture agreement. My understanding of JVAs is at some point, somebody doesn't deliver, the other party doesn't deliver, we can, quote unquote, break up.
That's right. And well, the breakup cannot happen without a court order, no? Let's make that clear. But why didn't we do it? Because honestly, we've really genuinely grown to care for the place. It's beautiful. It's a karst formation. In the area, you have these areas simply quarried out and then turned into flattened subdivisions. That's not what we want to see here. We saw an opportunity to collaborate with government.
But that's part of your deal, is to really build the houses. That's why I'm raising this contradiction. If you are indeed protecting the environment, why is the plan to build houses? Or you could have said, maybe it shouldn't be. We should not pursue this direction for developing this land, rather conserve it, which you're doing now, And this,
Correct.
you know, the position of the DNR, we don't see that in the process that you said this is not the proper course of action.
Well, you know, the starting point of the agreement is really the terms of reference, no? The terms of reference of the bidding that we won back in the 1990s. And so what we have to deliver is outlined there. That is what we're following. This is not something that we asked for. This is something that the DENR mandated of us. No, and that's why there is a housing component to it, no, and that's
And
also how.
if I may interrupt you, understand that there's selling of the public selling of cottages and land. These are seen on social media. So, is it true?
There are people who have already bought portions of the 1997 area involved. So there are people who already own lands and have been selling as well, no? If I may just go back to the question that you posed a while ago, the move towards something more conservation directed is actually something that the DNR also knows. In 2011 to 2013, we started discussions with the regional director of the DNR. And this was when we came together with a plan that is more geared towards the conservation of the place and more low-impact activities for the area. So kung babalikan natin the 5,000 hectares, if you look at the TOR of the project, nasa parang the largest cottages na nga would be 60 square meters big, no? So if you put that together, that's less than, it's about 30, 40 hectares if you think about it, no? But like what we said, we are for protecting this area. We are for making sure that this 300 hectares has as limited a development as we can possibly have. And that is why we have those discussions with DNR.
Well, and you did say that you haven't received the 15-day notice yet to vacate the area. That notice coming from the DENR. Let's clarify things. You really haven't received it, or you just haven't acknowledged receipt of that notice? And if so, what legal remedies are you looking to secure?
No, we have not received the notice at all. Please stay vigilant with us on this one. We do not want to reveal too much around our legal steps just yet, but rest assured that we will be sharing these in due place and time.
Okay, very quickly, I forgot to ask this to the DENR last Friday, and so maybe you can help me out. There was also an exchange between this 300 hectares where the geopark sits now and vis-a-vis a 1.5 hectare of land in Dasmariñas or Imus, Cavite called Pueblo Silio. Did that deal push through, and did you guys, were you guys the ones who initiated that exchange?
No, not at all. You can imagine for my dad during that time who hasn't even recovered the financing he's dedicated to the project, that was actually quite a blow. To be asked to advance shares of the partner ahead of time and deliver basically land that's actually more valuable. That's also one thing that I noticed in the statements of DENR. They kept on referring to hectares when this is somewhat like comparing land in Quezon versus land in Quezon City, which of course have different values.
No, but who initiated that exchange? And how did
It was
it
DNR
arise?
who initiated it. And the COA audits, we have never been involved in those, in fact. It's worth clarifying that the COA audit is on DNR and not on Blue Star or Masungi.
All right, one issue as well. We were told that the 300 hectares of the 2002 agreement are actually owned. The presidential proclamation was made to the Bureau of Corrections, meaning the DOJ is practically the owner of this land. Is that correct?
Yes, this has been an issue as well, no? And if we look at the history of the title, it's actually been titled since the 1950s. And it was only in 2022 that the Bucor got its title over the area, despite many department orders within the DENR also showing that the intent and the direction should not be towards that any longer. So even in 2022, we were caught by surprise that there was an affidavit of loss filed, and then in 2 months or less, a title was already issued to the Bucor. We were also kept in the dark when it comes to that.
So in 2002, when you signed, you didn't know that the Bureau of
No.
Corrections had the title.
the Bureau of Corrections didn't have a title yet then. I'm sorry, the title came out in 2022 for the Bureau of Corrections.
But did you know that there was a presidential proclamation from way before giving that land to the Bucor?
The presidential proclamation came after the joint venture agreement, the supplemental joint venture agreement, in either 2004 or 2006.
Lastly, I know how much do you generate in revenue from the ecotourism site?
Right. So the
Annually.
revenue generated from the ecotourism site, I got to say, a lot of people tend to think that we generate so much from that. If you compare it to what would be delivered if you develop the land, that's worlds apart. Let me just make that very clear. One. But two, if you look at the revenues of the place, this actually is really just enough to conserve the area. The number of people that we accommodate on a day really depends on what our plans are for the coming 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. At the time that this is the peak season, we do have visitors during the weekends, but the primary intent of the rangers is the maintenance and preservation and the protection of the place. No? So the slots that we open, and we only get to open a few slots, ranges even from 10, 14 slots a day.
So what's the
That
ballpark
I could say.
figure, if you don't mind? Ballpark on an annual basis.
Ballpark, and if you don't mind, I will make my quick computations here now.
Okay.
I have to admit that I haven't been looking at it very much because of advocacy related things, no? But, and again, these are all available in our financials, which are publicly available as well.
Okay, we'll wait. Is it long?
Again.
Yeah.
I'm
Don't
so
distract
sorry.
her in the middle of her
I wish I had the time to
Okay.
handle more tourism-related things, but we really haven't had a lot of time for it, I have to admit, in recent times.
So we will check your website.
Yeah.
It's there.
You
The
will find it there.
information.
You will find it with the SEC
financials.
and the BIR as well. It's public record po. Yeah.